one of which was actually valued over $100 million.
And I applied back then and I got accepted and then I rejected it.
Debating whether AI will replace jobs, Eric has used AI to build an automated content empire from his base in Vietnam. From Slovakia to Denmark to Vietnam, Eric has navigated the global startup ecosystem as both a fractional design leader as well as a founder.
I tend to think about design like making it very minimalistic and just focus on the bare minimum when it comes to the MVP.
What would be your strategy to find a co-founder?
Automation replace a human these days? I don't think so.
Finding a co-founder is I think it's as difficult as finding a partner, right?
True. A lot I also use City. It's one of the best power tools I use these days. So YouTube Shorts works pretty well. We got one customer from there so far in this Shorts 2 months. I just recently discovered this tool called less than 3% of Vietnamese startups that get actually VC funded, which is ridiculous. It's a really hard topic, I would say. Like we talk about this topic all the time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of ChaiNet, where we learn from builders before the machines take over. I'm your host, Rachit Magan, and today we're diving into the art and science of building products that investors actually want to fund and users actually want to use. Meet Eric Fiala. At just 30, he's already been head of design at 2 companies, one of which was actually valued over $100 million. He also led design at a company which raised more than $2.4 million seed funding, which was during his tenure. He scaled a company to more than 4,000 users, increased the retention rate by more than 7 times. And, while at places like ChaiNet, we're actually debating whether AI will replace jobs. Eric has used AI to build an automated content empire from his base in Vietnam. From Slovakia to Denmark to Vietnam, Eric has navigated the global startup ecosystem as both a fractional design leader as well as a founder. He's learned the hard way what separates products that generate revenue and get funded from those that actually die in the market. And today, he's going to share those battle tested insights with us. Eric, welcome to ChaiNet.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
Amazing. So, Eric, you've been head of design at companies which have raised funding, raised valuation, but you've also founded companies which actually fail to get product market fit, right? So you've seen both the sides of the equation. So how do you differentiate? What is the specific design decisions which actually influence users to use it, investors to invest in it, versus that which founders think really matters?
Yeah, I guess. Well, I've failed more companies than you would think, or projects. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess typically what founders get wrong when they're either trying to like raise funds for their products, or just typically even at sale, like doing sales with when selling their products. I think they tend to think that pitch decks don't really matter as much as the product itself, right? So they spend a ton of time building their product, but then they spend nearly zero time on building the pitch deck and building the story. And in fact, what really matters the most, it is the storytelling and the narrative around their product when they're pitching to investors. And so that's typically the sort of language, I would say, that investors typically use, right? Whereas the language that founders use is just so different, right? And they need to align on that. I guess another thing would be that the person pitching to investors, like they have to be the most knowledgeable person about that problem, right? And that solution and sort of that area, because not all investors gonna have the same knowledge and the same background and the same data.
Right.
And yeah, I think everything basically needs to be backed by data, or that is numbers or sources or citations, right? That makes a pitch deck really solid, and I guess that sells to investors also. Yeah, and no hyperboles, I would say, because a lot of founders, they tend to sort of use a very flowery marketing jargon, and investors can kind of see through that,
Right. So good pitch deck, but a good pitch deck does not mean a lot of marketing jargon and a lot of
True.
basically good
Just,
data.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, grounded in reality. Yeah.
Yeah. True. So let's talk a bit about about design in general. You mentioned in one of your articles that critical design decisions are very important, and they're actually what determines whether your product actually gets traction or dies in the market. So can you give an example, like a real life example of where a design decision has actually impacted some company which you worked with?
Yeah, um, I guess specifically, hmm, that's a that's a tough question, I guess. But yeah, I mean, in terms of when we were building, for example, feeds, or when were building source HR even,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of decisions that you need to account for that in design specifically. Is one thing is the sort of UI, and that's not really what we're talking about when we talk about design. But we talk about the sort of user experience and how the customer actually works with the product, and you really need to think back to the customer themselves, and go back from what is the problem that you're trying to solve for them, and always listen to them, uh, rather than building features for the sake of building features, I guess, right? And so I can't really recall like very specific, what you would call it, like a solution that would
Right.
make me think that okay, that's a critical decision, I guess. In feeds, or actually specifically in source HR, um, I guess that would be just simplifying as much as possible. Like I tend to think about design like making it very minimalistic and just focus on the bare minimum when it comes to the MVP. Just yeah, basically keep it simple and don't overcomplicate it. I think a lot of founders just want to build features, and that's kind of like a loop that you get stuck in
Yeah.
very easily. Yeah,
Yeah. No, the feature loop is something which I think every founder has got stuck in at least once in their life,
yeah.
maybe more. I myself have got stuck in the feature loop quite often, and even now, once sometimes I am in the feature loop, and then I realize that, oh my god, no, this is not the right way to go.
I think I still do the same myself sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, we think that you'll add those three new features and then everything will change, but
Yeah,
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 it
yeah.
seldom does. It seldom does.
True, true.
Right. So you were also in Antler, Vietnam, right? So
That's right. Yeah.
yeah, for which company were you in Antler, Vietnam, and how was the experience?
Yeah, so that was Source HR. I actually came to the program. It's a funny story. So I moved to Vietnam because my girlfriend's Vietnamese, and I've been here for like the past 3.5 years. And I knew about the program already, um, literally like a couple months when I was in. But then, and I applied back then, and I got accepted, and then I rejected it just because it just wasn't the right time, and I still had my full-time job and stuff.
Hmm.
And then I texted the general manager saying like, "Hey, I'm sorry, but let's hope that it works out next time," or something like that. And I think that kind of saved my ass from applying again and actually getting accepted second time, because I kind of gave him heads up that I will not be joining instead of just ghosting.
Right.
So that was like a funny story. But yeah, I think the experience itself, it was great. It really helped me think about how I build pitch decks and how to build really good pitch decks myself as a founder also. So I
Right.
want to sort of give credit back to where it's due. And you know, I guess the biggest take I would say that I taken from Antler will be the fact that taking like these big ideas, big visions, and big sort of the problem that you try to solve, and distill that to like the simplest possible sentence that you can, that
Hmm.
is data backed,
Right.
and that just speaks very directly to that. And I think that sort of principle I try to apply not just in pitch decks, but also in design, in sales decks, or whatsoever. Yeah, I also sometimes tend to use Claude and say stuff like, oh yeah, can you like explain this idea as if this was like a uh, eighth grade
Like a
student or
10-year-old.
something like
Yeah.
that.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that helps a lot, in simplifying stuff instead of using
Yeah,
jargon. Yeah.
that's actually a good prompt to give to Claude, right? Explain it as you're explaining it to an 8-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It'll help a lot. Yeah, I'll keep note of that for my next whenever I'm doing a next research. Yeah. So a lot of our listeners are kind of in the same position that maybe you were a couple of years back, where they're good at what they do. They've had successes, they're making decent money, but at the end they're trading time for dollars, and maybe
Yeah.
they're like indie hacking their way through trying something or the other. But what's your framework for identifying that which skill would eventually need a human touch, or which skill would be automated and they need to start thinking of something else?
Yeah. I guess like for automation, I think a lot of things can be automated these days, like especially with
Right.
tools like N8N, Make.com, Zapier or Zapier or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, but I guess like not every automation is like as effective in either that's time saving or that's money saving, I would say. And so mm, I think I would focus on automations that still are human assisted because then you can still get a better result. But in terms of like, I guess, will automation replace a human these days? I don't think so. But I guess, yeah,
Mm.
well, we can talk about that more later. Yeah.
Yeah, right. No, there are different thoughts amongst different people, and also I think it. What I have understood, I think we're at the 11th Chanet episode now. What I've understood is that whether AI will replace humans or not, it's very very subjective. It depends on what the person is working on, what the company is working on, and how deep are they in their work, right? I think that
Right.
really matters.
Right.
Yeah, but you have seen all the sides, I would say. Like, for example, in one of the companies, what I saw is that you raised funding, right? You got more than $110,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
You even got $500,000 in cloud credits, even reached 4,000 users, which is pretty cool. And that, for some people, that's the definition of success, right? But still you had
Right.
to shut down, and you're actually very transparent about them, which is amazing. But what do you think these failures actually taught you?
Yeah. I guess, I mean, this was back in for Source HR. Yeah, this is what we raised and achieved with during Antler Vietnam residency.
Right.
Um, and I think, I guess the biggest take that I got from, you know, trying things and failing, not just this startup, but in general, I think it really builds resilience, and you need to, be able to take risk, and that sort of kind of goes to why founders are sort of built different than people who enjoy being employees. Um, and I think that taught me a lot of that. Just being able to persevere through the hard times, even if either that's obviously it's easier if you co-founder, if you're not a solo founder, which was the case also for me in Antler, but also sometimes that actually creates more problems than you would as if you were alone. But I
Right.
guess that's with like everything, right? And so, I mean, unfortunately for us, even though the startup failed, there were definitely problems with product market fit. Maybe it was too expensive for the market. We were kind of like scrambling and trying to figure stuff out on the go, as you do. But unfortunately, like all that led to a co-founder breakup at the time, which was actually pretty stressful. Like that was one of my like the most stressful times of my life. So that wasn't really nice. And I guess that also teaches you about integrity of like your co-founders, because I guess when you're in the program, let's say specifically Antler, I think there's a lot of frameworks that really work well for meeting people and forming teams and all that. But there's certain things that are part of the soft skill spectrum, for example, integrity, which you will not get.
Absolutely.
Like you can't get to know people in such a short period of time, right? So integrity is something you find out about once shit hits the fan and things go
Yeah.
wrong, and I think that also taught me a lot about people, how to work with people, how how to choose co-founders and right co-founders, and yeah, also taught me about what I truly care about in startups, and it's really just basically giving, like, it's all about people, hiring the right people, and also building a product or a solution that to a real problem, for people that want that problem to be solved, and
Yeah.
are willing to pay for it, obviously. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, of course. But tell me, sir, since you've gone through a co-founder breakup, I would say it's it's a bad place to be in for sure. And but a lot of solo founders right now are usually stressed, and they look for co-founders, and there are a lot of co-founder matching systems out there now. Even Y Combinator has their own. I'm
Yeah.
sure Antler
Yeah.
has their own. How do you find, like, now after an experience, what would be your strategy to find a co-founder?
Yeah, I guess people, there's always this thing where people say, don't be a co-founder with your friends or family or
Right.
whatsoever, because money or whatsoever. But I
Yes.
think actually, if you have the access to somebody who has a skill that you require for building the company, and you are a friend or an acquaintance of some sort, uh, I think it's always better, because you already been in possibly been in situations where you get to learn about integrity, how they sort of behave in certain situations. Not necessarily you worked with them. That might also be that you have, and that's even better, because then you also have the work experience. Like, that could be your ex-colleague, or it can be, um, yeah, I mean, possibly ex-colleague, right? Or
Right.
ex co-founder if you built something together before. But yeah, I would say build with people you know. I think
Hmm.
that's actually much
Right.
better than many of these matching things.
Right.
Um, but honestly, I think they also provide value still, for people that just don't have the network of people. Like, for example, for me, I know very few software engineers, or I have had in the past, and that was always the problem for me, because I wasn't technical. I became a little bit more technical by now, so I can do some like web development stuff.
Hmm.
But still, I wouldn't be able to like just go ahead myself and code like hardcore apps, or web apps. So I still do need technical co-founder. Luckily, I know more people by now. Yeah, so it's not as much of a problem right at this point. But
Yeah.
it used to be a big problem. Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah. Matching, finding a co-founder is I think it's as difficult as finding a partner, right?
True.
It's
True.
not,
True.
it's
It's
not
a
easy.
marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a marriage for sure. I have been working with one of my co-founders since 2016 now. So
Mm,
it's been 8 years. We've been through thick and thin and very rough patches, with respect to startups, with respect to our friendship or our relationship, as I may call. But
yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's it's something which is very very important. And if you find someone like that, then yeah, then I think that kind of defines failure or success, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
I think so. And
mm,
I think also, like, in startups, it's really hard to align on the sense of urgency, because typically in startups you need to build fast, and um, it's really hard to find somebody who is fast at like critical thinking, problem
right.
solving, and all these things. Because uh, if you find if you come from startups, and then you find a co-founder, or try to find a co-founder that is from, let's say, big corporate enterprise, there's a very different sense of speed,
True. True.
and so that also, like, there's a lot of things like this that just make it harder to
Yes.
actually work together, right? So I think there's probably some sort of framework or some questionnaire that would probably answer these questions when both of these founders actually answer them, and it would sort of clarify the situation, I think. We had one in Antler. It was like, that was like 80 questions, 60 questions. It's like crazy.
Wow.
But still
Right.
happens that the biggest
Yes.
thing is co-founder breakup.
Of
So the
course.
questions help, but it's not sort of a remedy for
Yeah.
success, I guess. Yeah.
It's a learning experience, I think. And
Yeah.
yeah. So let's talk about bit about automation. You
Sure.
mentioned something which even I kind of felt while I was talking to people in India. So you also mentioned that in Southeast Asia, labor costs were so low that automation wasn't valued enough to pay for, right? I
Yeah.
think not very sure about the market in Vietnam, but I think in India that's still the case. When I see, when I see these AI tools, and especially the ones which have voice or your video editors and all, if I calculate the subscription of an AI tool that which I use versus I hire someone to do my work, who will be easier to communicate with and who can actually do the work,
Yeah.
it sometimes it's just it just is not a good financial decision to use an AI tool, right?
Right. Right.
So, but if someone's building something like this, how would someone evaluate whether a solution addresses a problem which people in their target market would actually pay for? How do you
Right.
evaluate something like that?
Yeah. So I think it's quite similar in Vietnam. Though for me personally, like it. Um, I mean, what I mean is the staff cost, right?
Right,
And I think for me personally, it's still there's a language barrier, right? And therefore, if I were to hire somebody in Vietnam that speaks good English, then I'll pay a premium, right? So,
right,
but I think amongst the organizations here, it's exactly the case that you described, right? And that's why also when we were trying to sell Source HR in this market, it just flopped because let's say I think it was somewhere between $100 a month to like $250 a month, and then for that price you can probably hire somebody, right, already,
right, right.
and have all the benefits that you described, and you don't have to move your finger. Whereas when you're building automations
Yes,
or whatsoever, you actually have to do the configuration, you have to like move the nodes or zaps or whatever, like, and it takes hours of time to get it right.
right,
So I think that's a big problem of all these automation tools that I see. And yeah, so if people have to evaluate, like, if an automation solution or some AI agent solution or whatsoever um, is is actually like profitable or viable to launch in the market, I think talk to the customers, right? Talk to the people, talk to the target market that you're after. You can't usually in the early stage go like, yeah, we're just gonna go horizontal global and acquire customers from anywhere. You always should have some sort of market, right? So talk to those people in that market. I
right,
think a lot I also use Perplexity. I have like a pro subscription of that. um, and it's really really good. Like, I really don't regret paying for that. That's one
nice,
of the best power tools I use these days. So it's really good at researching this sort of information about like how much are labor costs in this market, that market, versus my subscription, like is it worth
right,
it. So I think that's really good. And actually I also built this like Claude project uh, agent that I call it like a neutral agent, because it's
hmm,
basically like set of instructions that you can use there, and it will also sort of try to question everything that you give it in a very critical thinking manner. So it's all, for me it's kind of like a no BS partner that I can just like
right,
brainstorm
right.
ideas off of. But yeah, I'm happy, like, if anyone's interested in building this on their own as like a custom GPT or a Claude project, I'm happy to give the instructions to the audience. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I'm for anyone who's listening. If you're interested in such a, building such an OBS agent for yourself, Eric would be sharing the link, and after the live, I would share it in the LinkedIn comment section. So yeah, so if you're listening from some other platform, so please come to LinkedIn and you can then see the project. So Eric, we have one question from one of our viewers.
Yeah.
I think that's with respect to content base, and we'll deep down, we'll deep dive in on with respect to content base very soon. Let's start with this question that, hey Eric, content base looks awesome. How was your journey from 0 to 1, and what actually worked? That's a very interesting question because I think for
Yeah.
someone who's starting, you can a lot of people build pretty cool products, but they still have to figure out that how 0 to 1 is difficult, right? 1 to 100, I think, is still easy.
I think, I mean, we 0 to 1 is extremely difficult. I would say also, and we're still in that stage. I would say, like, closer to 0 than 1. Yeah. So and i- the journey, I mean, the journey has been very short for now. So it's been like around 2 months post pivot that we actually relaunched content base with the current offering. By the way, thank you so much for saying it looks awesome. Me as a designer, that really boosts my ego. Uh, but the things that work the most. So I mean, literally, we're trying everything. I would say like we're throwing shit at the wall and see what sticks, right? So we tried to do AI UGC. So we automate like creating videos with AI that are sort of like shorts. We cross post it to like LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, like literally everywhere that you can think of.
Right.
YouTube Shorts works pretty well. We got one customer from there so far in these shorts 2 months, so which I was just extremely surprised by. So I think YouTube is much better at also not detecting AI content compared to TikTok. TikTok is very good at detecting AI BS.
Right.
So I would say look into YouTube Shorts if you want like UGC kind of or AI, some sort of AI content.
Hmm.
I guess organically also SEO works for us quite a lot. I mean, we're doing it for ourselves, but then I mean, obviously trying to dog food the product, but um, I guess the biggest problem with doing SEO for ourselves in the SEO space is that all other SEO agencies and SEO
Right.
freelancers are doing SEO for themselves. So it's like
Yes.
most difficult place to
Yeah.
rank for anything.
You're competing with the
Um,
best of the best, right?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
That and what actually surprisingly can work well is paid advertising on like I would say Meta specifically, but you need to have really cheap product. Like
Right.
not like for us it didn't work that much. There were some targeting problems and stuff, but at the price point of $100 a month, what content base is, it is really hard to convert people from ads. Specifically, the customer acquisition cost for like English speaking countries, that which is what we're sort of targeting, it's just very high, and we would have to basically like close customer for 2 to 3 months of subscription to actually be able like be profitable at that point.
Right.
So I think having a cheap product and doing paid ads is very good, and it also depends on the country. Like in countries like Vietnam or India or these sort of lower GDP countries, the price for advertising is also extremely low, right? So that
Right.
works extremely well if you're first of all focusing on that market, but also localizing in that market. So I
Hmm.
guess that's my 2 cents for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Localizing and pricing. So let's talk a
Yeah.
bit about pricing actually. What is your strategy? Like you said, it's priced at let's say $100 a month, and
Yeah.
how do you land on a number, and how do the unit economics work of this pricing strategy?
Yeah, so for us, the way it worked is we looked at our competitors and how much they're basically charging. And then we looked at um, basically like how much are these kinds of tools, like not direct competitors, but also in their competitors, which is like these SEO tools in the market. And we kind of, eyeballed the price, right? That's kind of, it wasn't like rocket science or anything.
Right.
And we still I would say we still actually struggle with this price point, and I think we still need to explore um, a different price point maybe and different way of pricing, and I guess that's part of early stage pivoting all the time,
True.
iterating all the time. So I wouldn't say this price point is still it's like a sweet spot. So I think there's a lot of work to be done around pricing still, but yeah,
Hmm.
that's basically how we landed on it. Yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
basically you need to try out and experiment, and I think that's the only way you can actually end up with the right pricing strategy, right?
I think so. It depends on the market. Like the pricing is one of the equation in product market fit, right?
Right.
So finding a product and finding a price that's both competitive but also make sure that you have good enough margin to be profitable, unless you're like heavily funded and you don't care about profit. I think that's very important to test as much as you can. Talk to people. You can run very cheap ads to kind of test this on a larger scale. Um, yeah, and I think test and see what converts the best, and what's the sort of, I guess, the threshold of where when you turn it a bit like higher, people like significantly more people don't convert. So then you kind of found your sweet spot, I guess. Yeah.
Right, right. No, that's very valid. Um, since we're a little short of on in time,
Mm,
there are a couple of 2 to 3 last questions which I want to ask. The first one is, which the reason why we actually built Chinet, that you want to speak about the future in an AI first world. We've talked to developers, we've talked to founders, we've received very interesting points on their takes, right? Different leaders in different enterprises, small
yeah.
developers, small founders. What's your take on product design? How does product design evolve in an AI
Mm.
first world?
I guess, yeah, I mean, product design itself, mm, it's a really hard topic, I would say. Like, we talk about this topic all the time with like other designers, and I think it's really difficult to say how is it gonna evolve these days, because there's two parts to it, right? So there's this sort of UI, web design, whatsoever, which it I guess it is somewhat creative, right? But you don't always need the best you like looking product as long as it solves the problem, right? And UX and problem solving is something where um, I guess I help like AI helps a ton, like even for me, right?
Right,
So actually, just to go back to the UI part, so I think that is something that creatively you can always have some touch, right? And you always can make it look like something else, basically, right? Because there's a lot of these like tools that will design things for you these days, and it's just a copy paste boilerplate using the same
right,
components, like either that Chatcn or some other component. So I think that in the creativity of UI, I think that's where people can kind of play around and still have their own input.
right,
And in terms of UX, I think, yeah, what I said, Claude helps me even decide on a lot of things, because all the sort of like quantitative and qualitative research in a way has been done, right? And it's been fed to these AI models. So I think it's really good to sort of like bounce ideas with AI to figure out what is the right, I guess,
mm,
like path to take in UX. And also like in terms of the for the UI specifically, or building MVPs very fast, I just recently discovered this tool called Subframe, which is almost like
right,
a Figma meets AI development, or like vibe coding or something, but in a very smart way, where you can literally like go from an idea to some sort of semi-functional MVP very fast. But it is actually designed like sort of like if as a designer were to made it, not an AI, right? Because
okay,
when you use these things like bold, new, or you use like what's it called, Lovable, or all these tools, they
right,
always kind of generate this like generic slop that you can kind of tell it's like
yes,
AI generated, right?
right, right,
But
right.
Subframe like takes it to like cool another level. So if I
Wow,
have to shout out somebody, yeah,
it'll
like
be
I think that's a
something
really cool tool. You should check it out,
amazing.
definitely. Yeah.
I'll definitely check out Subframe, and I'll
Yeah.
check out who's building it and maybe get them to China and take
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
recommendation. But I think since you're talking about tools, there's a question from the audience that thanks Eric for being candid. Would love to know your tech stack for growth. So, are there any specific tools which you've used for growth?
Mm.
From our previous chats, like what we've spoken about in the last half an hour, I think Perplexity and Claude for for communication and for understanding, for research and
Yeah.
as a partner, but and of course Subframe. And are there any other tools?
Yeah. So, I mean, for growth specifically, and we're talking like maybe what I assume is like growth hacking, or growth
I think
or
so. Yeah.
organic growth also. So I think one of the things that I use a lot these days is for what I mentioned, like AI UGC, to basically get user-generated content with AI that looks human. Uh, and I use HeyGen for that. So it's very
Right.
similar. You probably heard about this tool. It's quite popular. It costs like $30 a month, and you can basically do unlimited videos. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So I can literally spin up like 5 to 10 AI generated shorts for YouTube every day if I wanted to. I don't do that because it takes quite a bit of time when you're doing like human assisted.
Right.
I didn't fully automate that. But yeah, it's pretty awesome. Like I think last month I got like 10,000 views on YouTube Shorts for content base,
Wow.
which is just ridiculous, and it's all AI, and each video gets like 500 to 1,500 views. It's crazy.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
For
That's
$30 a
also
month, I think that's a really good deal. Yeah.
right. And that's also, I think, one thing to notice whenever you're saying that, you're using AI, it's a lot of human assisted AI content.
Yeah.
It's not an automated AI slop, because I think that can be get recognized really easily. So,
I think there's a lot to. I mean, I can, if you have the time, I can describe how my whole workflow in this AI generated
please.
UGC content works.
Yes.
But so basically, I created the Claude project that when I give it some sort of context, it will, from that context, usually that's like a blog post or something, it will create um, a script for the AI with like a really good hook, really good sort of like sub hook, and how basically how the article should be, sorry, the video should be scripted,
Right.
and also gives me like a title, like hooky title, hashtags that I should add or whatsoever. So basically, where it starts is actually in Ahrefs, if you know, that's like
Yes.
biggest SEO blog that
Right.
they have. So I actually go through their RSS feed or just directly through the blog. I copy paste an article to this Claude project. It creates a script for me. It sort of name drops content base somewhere in there.
Right.
And basically, I copy paste this script to HeyGen. I made like a small template there already. So I copy the script, then it takes 2-3 minutes, creates the video for me. Then I download the video, go to CapCut, generate subtitles, and then I basically publish it everywhere: TikTok, YouTube Shorts,
Beautiful.
Instagram,
Right.
Facebook. It takes a bit of time, like takes maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or not even, maybe 10 minutes per video, and you get 10,000 views a month. It's pretty sick for
Amazing.
B2B SaaS. Yeah.
Yes, of course, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's Thank you so much for sharing your exact workflow. I think that's very important, and for the founders who are watching, and for the solopreneurs who are watching, or indie hackers, it's very very useful.
Yeah.
Talking about founders, since we're already 6 minutes late, I hope you have another 4 to 5 minutes, because I wanted to
For sure. Yeah.
just
Yeah.
ask one or two questions. Okay, wonderful. So you've been working your way in the Vietnamese ecosystem, and
Hmm.
there's this new initiative which you started called Deck Valley. Now,
Yeah, that's right.
you're trying to help. I think you're trying to help founders to eventually get funding through the best pitch decks. Can you shed some light about that?
Yeah. So the yeah, what you said, Deck Valley is the initiative, and basically the problem that is I'm trying to solve with that is something that I've kind of stumbled upon for the last 3.5 years that I've been here. And this doesn't just happen in Vietnam, but in Vietnam specifically there's a very big gap on the market, which is what we actually discussed right in the beginning of this session. Is about building the right pitch decks and talking to investors in their language with those pitch decks, right? So I think there's some statistic that like only less than 3% of Vietnamese startups that get actually VC funded, which is ridiculous. And I think over 90% of them, they get a no on the first touch, basically, right? Like when they first send the pitch deck to the investor for the first time, basically like a cold outreach, right? So it's super big problem for founders, and it has to do also with not enough exposure to decks from the West, or not enough exposure to startups, because it is pretty new still. Like it's in the
Right.
it's early years, and again, what I said, a lot of founders, they build good products, but they fail at building a good story about them or around them. And I think this is something that is highly needed in Vietnam, probably elsewhere also. But I just wanted to have a focus and sort of give back to the country where I'm at right now. So yeah. Yeah.
Amazing. That's very interesting, and I think that's something which is true for everyone. I think yeah, Deck. I know of companies in India which basically only work with startups trying to raise Series A, and just build their decks. And the
Yeah.
amount they charge is unbelievable. Like,
Do you know how much?
yeah. So they start from 5 lakh rupees. 5 lakh rupees would be somewhere around $3,000, right?
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that's like their bare minimum. That's before, like, they don't even to speak to you if you're not spending that much for a deck. And then of course it goes way like that's probably with that they'll give you like the basic design and the idea, which would probably be a
Probably
template. But
a
if you want
template.
like
Yeah.
a good consultation, it'll easily go up to $10,000, $15,000.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's crazy. And
Does
but,
it-
but
does
yeah,
it-
that also makes it's so important, right? That's why people
Yeah,
must be
yeah.
paying for it. Yeah.
Does it in Vietnam? Sorry, in India, because I know from Western markets, like these are more known services in the West. I would say like the pitch deck
Right.
equation. But so what typically would these companies do? They charge you upfront for the deck or for the consulting, which can be 5 to 10,000 or whatsoever in the West, and then they structure the contract as in once
They
you
take a
raise,
percentage
they
of the
take a
raise.
certain,
Yes.
yeah, so they,
Yes.
they take the percentage of the raise as a success fee. Is that the same in
Exactly.
India? Because
Yes.
from
It's
what
the
I
same.
know, okay, because from what I heard in Vietnam, like it's not the case for this market.
Okay.
So it's usually like just an upfront fee for the thing and that's it. And it has to do with some regulation because I think you need some like special financial license because
You
of
need
this or
to be an
something like that. Yeah,
accredited investor. So
correct.
that regulation has just come in India. So I have this data from 2 years back. When
Yeah,
we were trying to raise, and that's when we saw these companies, and we were like, guys, this is very expensive for us.
yeah,
But now the regulation is there. So I'm not sure what's the scenario now. But this regulation has just come. I'm not even sure if it's actually been passed as like a law yet, but yeah, the accredited investor thing is now about to happen in India as well, which is, I think, which is good. It helps. It helps filter out people who do not know what investing is and do not know the
right.
risk associated with
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Right.
true.
Great, Eric. Thank you so much. This has been incredibly valuable. You've shown us, that great product design isn't just, making things look good. It's about making these strategic decisions. Making sure that how these how design decisions actually end up getting users to use it, investors to fund companies. And yeah, and I think for all our listeners, that was Eric Fiala teaching us that product design is ultimately about solving problems that people would pay for. And you can find him scaling content base or helping founders through Deck Valley on LinkedIn. And yeah, thank you so much, Eric. Thank you once more for your time. It has been a very good experience talking to you.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me, and I had a lot of fun. Yeah, and I hope this was, yeah, as you said, useful and valuable.
Amazing. I'm sure, because we
Yeah.
have 3 more questions from the audience lined up, but of course we're now way over the time limit. So guys, for those whose questions were not answered, please ask Eric on LinkedIn. You can connect with him, and you can message him your questions, or you can comment on on our video, and he'll probably reply back.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. Yeah, and I'll be also sharing the instructions for the
Yes,
neutral agent.
please do that. I'll put that in our video. Yes.
Cool.
Thank you, Eric. Have a wonderful
Thank you
day.
so much. Okay,
Thank
you too. Bye bye.